I am alive 6 years now. Here's why. Inner work saved my life literally. This is what I say to my friends quite a lot of times. I want to share with you today why I felt dead inside for my whole life up until 6 years ago when I started doing inner work. So, this is going to be your guide on how to feel alive again with practical steps you can implement today. So, yeah, let's get into the video. If you're new here, hi, my name is Chrisana. I'm a psychological life coach. If you've been here before, hi, welcome back. And yeah, let's get into the video. I want to start with a story where I was 6 years ago, why I felt dead inside, and how I got to feeling alive again. 6 years ago, I was living in Athens. I had my own apartment. I had my cat. I was studying for my dream degree, which was studying psychology. Everything good looked on paper. But inside of me, I was quite depressed, which for me showed up as functional, kind of meeting my basic needs and a bit more. Like I was working out, I was eating healthy, and I was studying for my exams for my degree, not anything else. Deep inside, I still felt frozen. I still felt like I couldn't move. I couldn't do a lot of other things I had in mind for myself. I remember sitting on my couch, staring at the ceiling and just overthinking, ruminating, or daydreaming and dreading in that, not being able to move out of that. By the way, if you want to know more about overthinking, ruminating, or feeling frozen, you should check out my series From Survival to Self-Leadership, which explains where overthinking comes from. I have a video on that, and then I have another video on feeling frozen. And I think I have total 4 videos which they explain all of our survival strategies and how to get from survival to self-leadership. So I'm gonna link them down below. Feel free to check them out. They're gonna bring together most of the things I speak on my videos. So yeah, basically I couldn't do anything else. Yes, I was socializing, but I was feeling dead inside. Like I was not there. I was just doing things just to do them. I was like a robot. I was constantly just doing things because all of the other people around me seemed to enjoy them, even though I was not enjoying all of those things. And so at that time, I also had a boyfriend. At this time that we are speaking of, it was a 2-year relationship. I want you to keep that on mind because it's a really important detail. If you see me looking down, it's because I have my notes here. So that relationship was not serving me, was not serving him. For example, I needed more affection, I needed quality time, and I couldn't get that out of this relationship. This person would stay on their phone and other situations like that. So I knew deep inside of myself this was not for me, but I couldn't access that intuition. I couldn't even move in my life, right? So how would I end a 2-year relationship? I was frozen. I was so fearful of so many things in my life. Another important detail is that I couldn't even go to my corner shop because I was constantly thinking what other people might think of me. I'm telling you, it was really, really bad. Like I was really depressed and anxious together. Also, to stay in that relationship, I was people pleasing. So I was doing a lot of things. Like I said before, like my cycle was doing that I didn't quite enjoy. It's just that other people enjoyed them. So I was just doing things. And also out of fear, out of keep this relationship going, even though it wasn't going anywhere. So there was a lot of conflict inside myself. At that point, I also started doing a clinical internship and I met some new friends and I thought to myself, this is the time I need to start therapy. I need to do something about myself. Like I cannot keep thinking and being in this situation anymore. Even if it doesn't work, I need to try something out. And in the beginning, because I also like holistic healing, I tried homeopathy and it didn't work. Nothing helped me. Maybe it helped me for like 2 months and then it would be the same situation all over again. And I think I also went to 2 to 3 professionals. 2 of them told me that I was too young and nothing was wrong with me. Which, like, it sounds empathetic. I also say to you, there is nothing wrong with you, but it depends on the context. You cannot say to someone like, I cannot even get out of my house because I'm thinking about how other people perceive me, or I stare at the ceiling for a lot of hours, or like I cannot move, I'm frozen, and they're gonna tell you you're okay. Like, that's invalidating. This was clearly invalidating and it would keep me in this loop. Luckily, I found a psychotherapist, so we started having sessions. I started doing things for myself internally. So this is how I got into inner work. I started with psychotherapy. I know a lot of people start in different ways. For me, it started with having somebody else there to be the witness for me, to show me what I cannot see, because there were things that I couldn't see at that point. I couldn't address on my own, right? Excuse me if you can hear the dogs outside. They are on a roll today. And because in this channel we speak a lot about childhood wounds, and I think it's imperative, if you want to go to the next level of your life, if you want to do anything new, if you want to evolve into the next version of yourself, it's really important to heal those kind of wounds. And, you know, I want to keep myself accountable. No exception to that. Nobody is. And at that point, like I told you, we didn't have a lot of quality time or emotionally affectionate time. And here I want to add that this person was not emotionally present with me. At that time, I was not emotionally available either. So it makes sense that I created this dynamic. But also, here's the interesting thing about that. I recreated the dynamic I grew up with. Now, I love my dad, and he was not emotionally available for me or for my other siblings. He was physically there, he was providing, he was meeting our physical needs, but he wasn't meeting our emotional needs. So I recreated the dynamic, right? He was not emotionally present with me there. And because of my low self-worth at that point in my life, I settled for that relationship because we had no common values. And I was thinking to myself subconsciously, who do you think you are to choose someone that you align with? Who do you think you are? You cannot do that. Who do you think you are to deserve something more? So that thought, first of all, was showing me how critical I was of myself. And I recreated my father wound. And so I started seeing that more clearly through inner work at that point. And now the good part starts. Within 6 months of inner work, I started finally moving after a lot of years of feeling like I couldn't move out of my couch, out of my ceiling, and overthinking and ruminating. I finally moved. And you know what was the first thing that I did? Yes, you guessed it right. I broke up with that person. I showed myself through that action that I deserve more. And if you've been in a similar situation, feeling entrapped, imprisoned in a situation, thinking there is no way out, thinking that nobody in your life has done that before, having no examples around you or not healthy examples of relationships around you, you know how transforming that can be. Like, this is cycle breaking. This is what cycle breakers do. That's why I speak so much about cycle breaking, because it's the most important thing you're gonna do in your whole life if you have this kind of childhood like me. And so I found the courage to get out of that relationship because of inner work. And only 6 months of inner work can change the trajectory of your whole life. I'm not kidding. Of course, this was just the beginning, of course, but this was also the end of the old cycles, the end of me repeating that and bringing that potentially to a future child. No, that ends with my generation. That ends. I also want to acknowledge the power of getting out of that freeze response, because for me, I genuinely couldn't move. If you've taken my quiz on the self-activated archetypes and you had the daydreaming queen, by the way, if you know, you know, this is a self that gets activated during a big life transition. So if you want to know more, I'm going to link it down below. It's free. But if you've gotten the daydreaming queen, you really understand what I'm speaking about right now. Like, I was the daydreaming queen at that point in my life. I was oscillating actually between the daydreaming queen and I think the good girl, but I was mostly the daydreaming queen for most of my life. I still am, but in a different way. So I was mostly in the shadow side of the daydreaming queen. I was not able to move. I was frozen. I couldn't put any action into my dream self, into my dream life, into the next level of myself. So if you're going through that right now, know that it is possible, because only 6 months of inner work resulted in breaking out of feeling imprisoned. So know that it's possible for you too. If it's possible for me, it's possible for you. So I found the courage to choose myself and leave behind that unhealthy relationship. And when you choose yourself for the first time in your whole life, magic happens. Magic happens. You know what else happens? Your whole perception of life changes in a good and positive way. You now feel empowered. You now know that you can achieve things, that you can make things happen. I'm telling you, when you choose yourself for the first time ever in your life, your reality shifts. You unshackle yourself from all of those old stories, from all of those old limitations, of all of those wounds. All of those wounds now belong to the past, where they always belonged. They just were showing up in my present life through the lens, through the perception of the past, because that's what happens with wounds, right? They get triggered. They are trying to complete a story that wasn't completed in the first place, which is usually our childhood. But of course, it can be other wounds, like more societal, or like they can show up in your teens, other kind of traumas. But most of the time, it's in our childhood. And we cannot see it until we see it. That's the tricky part about it. So truly, you unshackle yourself from those old limitations. I'm telling you, before that, I felt in my bones, in my cells, like I couldn't escape or breathe. I couldn't escape a specific situation, like I was imprisoned. Of course, that has to do with my childhood wounds, of course. And I know where it comes from my grandma. She experienced a lot of abuse from her husband. But this can show up even if you don't have a clear picture of your trauma of the past generations. If you have that, that's great, because you have a lot of clues of what you might be inclined to repeat until you give an end to that story, until you choose yourself instead of being chosen, instead of feeling imprisoned. Because being chosen before you rewire that means being imprisoned, right? But being chosen doesn't have to mean being imprisoned. It changes through our own perception and through our own inner work. I want to add here that the reason I started therapy at that point, which catapulted me into inner work, is not that I was feeling depressed or I couldn't move. That I couldn't access at that point. It was a specific intrusive thought that I had almost every moment of the day, and that had to do with being afraid of death, of being afraid of being dead. Now, that is also another wound, but because I started with untangling that specific wound, that resulted in me breaking the chains of being in this relationship. So that's why inner work is so magical. Once you start doing that, once you start pouring into yourself, it starts pouring into all areas of your life. You start choosing yourself more and more in every area of your life. It's like finding the hidden key to the magic door that opens up possibilities to all areas of your life. And at the same time frees you from the predicaments of the past. It literally rewires who you are at your core. That opens access to the true self, the person you always meant to be in this lifetime. And that's why we have been assigned those specific lessons, those individual lessons in our lives to access the true self. That I believe in my core, like every single one of us came here to re-become, as I like to say, the truest version of ourselves. It's not something unachievable, unattainable. It's something we can all have access to. And that's why Metamorphosis, my psychological coaching program, doesn't focus in one specific area of your life. If you could choose one specific area of your life, that would be focusing on yourself, on the relationship to yourself, to your psyche. Because eventually bettering the relationship to yourself is gonna pour into all areas of your life. It's not just one specific area of your life. It's how we approach working through that big life transition you're going through right now with bettering and evolving. I actually like the word evolving better because better implies that there is something wrong with you and we need to fix it. No, it's about evolving that relationship to yourself and re-becoming the true version of yourself in this new chapter of your life, whatever that is. Maybe you're entering marriage, maybe you're relocating, maybe you're finally going after that career you always wanted, whatever it is for you. We are focusing on you because that's eventually gonna show you how to show up in every area of your life with courage, with curiosity, with ease, with clarity, not with self-doubt or self-sabotage or like I was frozen by. It was mostly fear. We get you to a place of courage, and that pours into every area of your life. Even if that one specific life transition is one area of your life, you're gonna see difference in all areas of your life. So once you get out of that, so once you unshackle yourself from all of those limitations, from all of those constraining experiences, you're actually getting on the driver's seat of your life. This is what happened for me. This was my first time ever that I got on the driver's seat. Instead of those fears, I was taking the wheel. Those fears, those limitations, the self-doubt, the people-pleasing, the inner criticism, they were not driving my life anymore. I was the driving force for the first time of my life. I also started being in control of my life, and that felt so empowering. In control, not in a way that you want to control the outcome or being obsessed with attaching your identity to things, but in control of taking action aligned to what you want to have in your life, to who you want to be in your life, firstly. For the first time in my entire life, I escaped the shackles of my past traumas, of my woundings, of my limitations. And that changed me forever. Someone could say that was a spiritual awakening. I'd like to call it a mental and emotional awakening because I have other stories in terms of spiritual awakening, which I cannot wait to share with you in the future. But for now, let's call this a mental and emotional awakening, even though your souls evolve through all of our experiences in life. Because I have a more clear experience of a spiritual awakening, I want to use that term consciously. So that was my story on how I felt alive again after feeling basically dead for my entire life. So let me know in the comments if that resonated with you, if you also had a spiritual, mental, or emotional awakening. I always read all of the comments. I would love to know your story too. And now let's get into the practical ways on how to feel alive again. So I'm gonna share with you 4 steps. First rule on how to feel alive again. Trust the process. I know everybody says that, trust the process and yada yada yada. But trusting the process doesn't mean you just sit back and just observe what is happening in your life. Reflecting has a time and a place. Observing is staying inactive. So trusting the process has to do with staying consistent, with being there for yourself, with choosing yourself through action. So there is a term called compound effect. I think there is a book too, even though I haven't read it. I think this is where this concept comes from. The notion is that the more you work on something, the more consistent you are with a specific thing into your life, like doing inner work, the more results you're gonna have in that area of your life. And in the beginning, you might not have any tangible results, right? But at some point, all of that effort will be compounded and you're gonna see a stack of results. It's not just gonna be something small, it's gonna be a big reveal of results. So trusting the process is being consistent with your efforts. So trust the process of your inner work. It's gonna come back to you tenfold. Second way, I know a lot of people might not agree with me, but I believe that feeling worse is a sign to keep going and not to stop. And I'm gonna explain to you why. If you feel worse in the beginning, in your inner journey, through your inner work, that means something that was frozen or repressed down into your psyche is coming to the surface. And now you might think, why is that good? It is good because energy, emotions, needs, all of that repressed parts of yourself are coming to the surface. And that is good because they are finally getting a say into your life. They finally get a place and space to express themselves. It's like having an inner council. You need all of the members for different reasons. If you repressed some of those members, that's gonna have detriment effects. The way I like to think of it is like an iceberg. So the tip of the iceberg are your behaviors, what you see and you do in your day-to-day life. Brushing your teeth, making your bed, maybe even working out, eating and acting in specific ways. So all of that is the tip of the iceberg. And down under the surface of this iceberg are all of our needs, all of our emotions, thoughts, our wounds, our traumas, all of our perceptions around what life is for us. All of that is under the surface and we cannot see it until we see it. So when all of those things or some of those things or even one of those things come to the surface, things seem to get worse. That's why I like to say things get worse before they get better. If that happens for you, it's a good sign to keep going. And when you start doing inner work, that iceberg starts to melt. So all of those things that were under the surface, like your wounds, your traumas, your repressed needs, emotions, they are finally being revealed to you. They are coming to the surface of this ocean. This ocean is you. And of course, it's gonna get worse before it gets better. Of course. Because this is something you haven't had access for God knows how many years. So my advice is to keep going. Even if things get worse in the beginning, it's gonna get better. That's not to say don't take breaks or don't have fun, your kind of fun. That's to say, no, it's gonna take you eventually where you want to be in your life, to your truest self. And trusting that, back to point one, trusting that, having faith in that, it's gonna lead you eventually where you are meant to be. It's gonna lead you where you want to be. Three is about doing it afraid. This is an art for me. This is something, once you cultivate enough, then it becomes like a game. This is also what makes you feel confident and empowered. You don't just become confident or empowered just sitting in your wounds and reflecting on them. No, you become confident and courageous by taking courageous action. When you know that something inside of you wants to do that, desires this outcome, desires to go after that dream of yours. So when you are putting that action, scared, because it's scary to relocate, it's scary to start the career of your dreams, it's scary to move through marriage, it's scary to break up. But once you put action, even when you're afraid, that's exactly the moment your confidence skyrockets. It's like a muscle. The more you work out, the more defined that muscle becomes. So the more you do things afraid, the more courageous and confident you become. The other thing that not a lot of people talk about is that the more confident and more courageous you become, the more self-trust you build inside of yourself, which of course results in increasing your self-worth. So you create higher self-worth within yourself. You start seeing yourself of somebody who is trustworthy. That is the basis of confidence. That is the basis of self-esteem. Seeing yourself as someone who keeps promises to yourself. That's how you build a better relationship, not only to yourself, but with other people too, because that can pick up unconsciously from other people. When you are trustworthy, you show yourself that you are capable of keeping the promises to yourself. And again, that skyrockets your confidence. And how you see yourself, you start seeing yourself more positively. Finally, 4 is getting unstuck by getting support where you need to. What do I mean by that? So the most capable and intelligent people are not the ones that think they should do everything alone, are not the ones that are afraid of asking for help, are not the ones that are hyper independent, but the ones that find the right support for them, the ones that get help to get out of the hole they dug for themselves. Because they know to get to that next level of themselves, to get to the next phase of their lives, they need support, they need help. And they know something really, really important that not a lot of people apply into their lives. They apply it. They know that pride and ego have no space in their lives when it comes to taking care of themselves. Because asking for help, getting that support means they are taking care of themselves. And they also know something really wise that I didn't know before that 6 years, because if I knew that, I would get help sooner. They know that if they keep avoiding this persisting issue, in my case, it was feeling frozen, depressed, anxious, this problem is gonna increase. Back to the compound effect that works both ways in a positive and negative way. It's the same coin, just different sides. So that issue is gonna keep increasing. And the cost is gonna become so much bigger than just paying the price upfront. The cost is gonna increase every month. Every year they don't get that support. And they know because of the compound effect. Something I wish I knew sooner, before that 6-year period of my life. And I'm also grateful for getting that support I needed, even after so many years, to kick off my inner work. That is all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments, what is one thing you're gonna start applying into your life? What is one thing that brought you insight in terms of where you are right now in your life? I would love to know where you are right now in your life. If you want to go deeper into your inner journey, if you're going through a big life transition and you know you need help and support with that, I will leave the link for Metamorphosis down below. This program is for women who are standing at the edge of a life transition where the old version of the self doesn't quite fit into the new life, but the new self is not quite there yet. It's not clear yet. So Metamorphosis helps you to get to that next version of yourself, to that rebecoming, without fear, self-doubt, or self-sabotage, but with courage, with clarity, with curiosity, with compassion. So I will leave the link down below. Feel free to check it out. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so grateful that you took the time to watch this video. I'm so grateful that you're a part of this community. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!